Patrons, parents, and students, welcome to the 2015 Pleasant Hill R3 First Annual Activities Meeting. Students participating in activities at the Pleasant Hill High School or Middle School and one of their parents are required to attend this meeting before performing or participating in competition. This is new and will be an annual event. Activities departments throughout the state have made it a commonplace to require this meeting to make sure students and parents are informed of rules, regulations, and policies before participating in our programs. I am Jim Oliver, the Activities Director for the Pleasant Hill School District. Today we will be introducing philosophy, eligibility, and culture, expectations leading the tradition here of prideful and successful learning experiences for our kids in Pleasant Hill. The agenda today will include some introductions of some important leaders within our programs, a trip through some activities handbook highlights, a discussion centered on concussion protocols within the state and our school district, and finally some attention to these resources available to you in obtaining information on our programs during the school year. One of those very popular resources is the Activities Department's Twitter account. If you haven't ventured into the Twitter universe, I would encourage you to give it a try for no other reason than to follow the roosters and chicks. The administrators have access to tweeting the various events and providing some informative information on cancellations, game time reminders, and scores. Twitter is a public domain, so although we have some control over who views our materials, there are loopholes. Our Twitter feed is intended to provide motivation to attend our events and provide positive reflection for our students. Please honor that purpose if you choose to interact with our account. Twitter has proven to be a good thing for our programs, as many of them have started Twitter accounts as well. Let's proceed and take a look at some highlights of this year's Activities Handbook. The handbook is available on our new Activities website. It will also be mailed to parents within a file containing information to include concussion information, MSHA eligibility information, and information describing NCAA eligibility preparation. We encourage you to read through the handbook, which has been approved by the Pleasant Hill Board of Education. All descriptions within the handbook are board policy after being approved. We would like to point out that students participating in our activities programs have huge educational advantages. They become well-rounded and focused, increasing academic achievement overall. Being involved in our programs, coaches and sponsors will teach the kids to perform and to participate with professionalism in class, allowing them to take positive, learned values into college or the workforce after their experiences here at Pleasant Hill. Not to mention the positive reflection the students bring to their teams or groups, their families, and our community. Ultimately, our philosophy is to develop and implement an activities program that is consistent with the philosophies of education adopted by our Board of Education. We believe participation contributes to health and happiness, the development of physical skills, emotional maturity, and social competence with moral values. They also teach a sense of cooperation, the spirit of competition, self-discipline, and along with a positive contribution to group goals, an understanding of democratic processes. Representing and participating in Pleasant Hill's activities and athletics programs is a privilege, not a right. Hence, involvement will be treated as such in dealing with potential issues and moving forward in today's meeting. Some important objectives you can feel good about are listed on this slide. We hope to primarily develop exemplary school citizens while developing good qualities, physical, mental, and moral. Integrity and respect are mentioned here as objectives in dealing with others. We hope our kids develop high expectations of themselves academically, fostering high levels of achievement and positive attitudes. Doing all this is important while developing pride in oneself, our school, teammates, and classmates, winning and losing graciously and with professionalism. We strive for students and programs our community will continue to be proud of. In every organization, it is necessary to identify protocols in dealing with various issues. In the next few slides, we will attempt to identify some common issues and describe what you can expect should your child be involved at some point. Keep in mind, being a part of our activities programs is a privilege, so many consequences will be in addition to what may be experienced within the academic school day. Citizenship is a primary focus for Pleasant Hill School District. MSHA leaves descriptions and consequences in dealing with citizenship issues up to its member schools. What that means is our local administration and board set policies concerning these matters. You will find very different policies as you compare districts throughout the state. You will also find that we expect our students to participate at the highest levels and compete with exemplary levels of character when representing the Pleasant Hill community. Issues in citizenship. Bottom line, a student participating in behavior that is unethical, illegal, immoral, deceitful, and disrespectful to others will not be tolerated. Credible evidence that such activity exists will result in enacting the citizenship clause. Students who have been charged with a crime that is not drug related will be subject to the school citizenship policies. At Pleasant Hill, students will lose eligibility to compete in no less than 20% of the current seasons or the next season in which they are eligible to participate. Examples of offenses in this area might be physical or verbal altercations, bullying, vandalism, or maybe social media representation issues, inappropriate photos, conversations, etc. Suspension from competition will not officially begin until all penalties are completed to the satisfaction of judicial authority. Documentation will be required for the activities penalty to begin. We want our students to be responsible when interacting with one another and our community. Students will not represent our sports teams or groups in competition if they can't be credible citizens. Here's what you can expect when dealing with alcohol and drug issues. Credible evidence identifying the possession or use of drugs or alcohol or the simulation thereof will fall under this category. The first offenders will lose eligibility to compete for no less than 40% of the current season and or the next season in which they are eligible to participate. The reason we say the next season in which they are eligible basically eliminates the question for those who may be academically ineligible. Those students will satisfy the academic penalty before losing eligibility concerning the citizenship clause. Students will be able to practice depending upon their head coaches or sponsors' protocols. A second offense with alcohol and drugs subjects the offender to an automatic 365 days loss of competitive eligibility for all activities involving Pleasant Hill schools. Continued violations could result in permanent suspension from school activities. Now, tobacco and smoking have similar consequences but are no less important. Credible evidence identifying the possession or use of tobacco or smoking products and paraphernalia or the simulation thereof falls under this category. Students will forfeit the opportunity to appear in competition for no less than 20% of the current season and or the next season in which they are eligible to participate. Subsequent offenses may result in additional suspension up to and including permanent suspension from school activities. Please note, in all incidents where students are directly involved in the aforementioned issues, they will be initially identified as ineligible until a decision can be rendered. This is done to protect the safety of our students and to maintain the eligible performance of our teams and groups. Students experiencing ISS or OSS will not be allowed to participate in assemblies, field trips, team activities, or any other school activities before or after school while under the suspension. If disciplinary action is needed pertaining to a student attending a school-sponsored event, the same consequences will apply as an extension of our school day. If you wouldn't do it at school, don't do it at a ball game. Those who are suspended from incidents involving the school day or otherwise are ineligible until the suspension is satisfied. Depending on the timeline, this may coincide with the activity's consequences. Attendance eligibility. There are no changes in the attendance requirement as it pertains to participating in activities. This is generally a day-to-day issue and comes into play quite often when students are ill or need to make appointments for health reasons. Students must be in attendance at least 4 classroom hours to be eligible to participate that day or the following day if the weekend is involved. In this case, participate means practice or compete. If there's a doctor's note excusing the student from class, the absence will not come into play with activities unless the time gone is being abused. Doctor's appointments can be communicated to coaches and directors in advance. Please take time and do this. Prior permission may be obtained from an administrator on various personal issues. The scholastic side of things seems a bit wild, but is really very simple. If you have an F, you cannot compete. That is an academic probation situation, and students may once again compete when the teacher communicates with the coach the grade has improved. The students have the responsibility to communicate with their teachers in maintaining the expectations of obtaining a passing grade through any semester. Now, MSHA is very clear on the expectation for passing grades when it comes to eligibility for a semester. Each student must, number 1, be enrolled in 3 full credits worth of classes to participate in the current semester. And number 2, students must have passed 3 credits, 6 courses, in order to participate in the next semester. Pleasant Hill requires you to pass all of your classes. If you have 1 F, the student will be placed on academic probation for the activities until mid-quarter of the next semester. This means the student will not be able to compete for any program until all grades are passing. Students will become eligible on the second school night after deficiency slips have been handed out, basically the first 4.5 weeks of the season. Again, any student that does not pass the required 6 courses will be ineligible for the entire next semester. Bottom line, education is more important than athletics and activities. Make them your priority. This slide shows a quick recap of what MSHA identifies as the scholastic requirements for eligibility. 3 units of credit earned and enrolled in 3 credits currently. The slide also reiterates the citizenship position by MSHA. Bylaw 212 states, a student who commits an act for which charges may be or have been filed by law enforcement must notify the school immediately. Failure of the student to notify the school prior to the school's discovery of the incident will result in the student being ineligible for 365 days from the discovery. We understand confidentiality is very important. Come into the office and request a meeting and let us know of the situation. If you plan on experiencing the privilege of competing for Pleasant Hill schools, you need to be mature enough to take responsibility for your actions. We can't hear it from someone else first. We want you competing as soon as possible. Help us with this. One last thing on scholastic eligibility. At Pleasant Hill, credits recovered in summer school do not count towards eligibility. This policy has not changed within the Pleasant Hill school system. It has changed in certain situations in the eyes of MSHA. The Pleasant Hill policy is indeed tougher than the MSHA policy. There is a How to Protect Your Eligibility pamphlet published by MSHA each year. We encourage you to take a look at it and become familiar with the information within it. There is information regarding students participating in activities outside of school during their school seasons. One item many students and parents don't know is that students may not participate in any other activity on the same day of a school activity, regardless of what that activity might be. An example might be attending a competitive athletic practice on the same evening of a school game or practice. Aside from same sport, same season restrictions, students may participate in another sport outside of the school sports season provided it is not the same sport. There are a number of items that are regulated. Please be aware so that your athlete can remain eligible. They again point out the physical exam requirement along with the permission to participate form before being allowed to participate. Insurance coverage must exist for any student to participate with our activities department at Pleasant Hill. Next, we would like to dive into the topic of sportsmanship. Good sportsmanship is a priority of mine as an athletic director, and it always has been as a coach. I will maintain that excellent sportsmanship by our students and parents paints an accurate picture to other communities as to what our community is all about. I take pride in representing Pleasant Hill. So too should our students and our parents and coaches. Hence, an unsportsmanlike act while participating in activities will cause loss of eligibility and participation. This goes for student and adult spectators as well. We must reflect and model for our kids the proper way to perform and interact at competitive events. Administration will deal with unsportsmanlike acts as the activities director is required by MSHA to explain how they address the incidents. We have to acknowledge yellow cards via the MSHA website after soccer games, for instance, and coaches who have been removed from a contest have to complete a sportsmanship course before returning to the bench. Any player being ejected from a contest as a result of unsportsmanlike act will be considered before the Coach Advisory Council to consider his or her eligibility moving forward. This should not be an issue at Pleasant Hill. Likewise, patrons being inappropriate will be asked to leave and may be subject to a suspension from attending events based on their behavior. Regardless of what fans might think, officials don't care who wins, and they often are not perfect. They officiate because they enjoy it. Let them work. Don't bring discredit to our school by verbalizing your displeasure to them. It will only hinder our programs in competition, and it provides a negative model for our young people. Keep it positive, and everybody wins. When it comes to transportation, students are required to ride school-sponsored transportation both to and from Pleasant Hill school-sponsored activities in which they are involved. Sponsors may make an exception for the return trip home, but will release a student only to a parent, guardian, or grandparent unless previous arrangements have been approved through administration. Students and parents must not underestimate the concept of team in riding the bus home together. This is a time where players get to build relationships and reflect on their performances. Checking out as a matter of convenience is sometimes necessary, but should not be abused. I'd like to introduce everyone to Miss Jennifer McConnell. She's been working at Pleasant Hill the past 2 years as our athletic trainer contracted through the Lee Summit Medical Center. Jennifer does a phenomenal job at dealing with student injuries and concussion protocols. She will be our concussion expert and be processing the kids through the concussion protocols and communicating progress with parents and physicians. One thing about concussions you can count on at Pleasant Hill: in the case of traumatic head injuries or symptoms of a concussion, student athletes will not be allowed to continue involvement with any activity until the following protocol is completed. After identifying concussive symptoms, to begin the protocol, the player must be cleared by a physician to participate. Then a 5-step progression protocol is completed by an athletic trainer or qualified healthcare professional. This is a state law and is for the physical protection of our kids. An official release to participate by the aforementioned athletic trainer or qualified healthcare professional must be issued identifying the participant is symptom-free through the progression. The timeline on this progression process does vary, as no concussion is the same. Here's what you can expect through this process. 1. The injury will be reported to our certified athletic trainer. This may occur after the incident or the next day, as the coaches may not have access to a certified professional. The trainer will evaluate the player to determine if concussive symptoms exist. Second, the certified trainer does a concussion education with the parents. Next, an appointment with a physician will be required if necessary. In the meantime, the athletic trainer, in our case Jennifer, will send paperwork to the physician indicating her findings. A physician's release to start the return to play progression is obtained. The RTP progressions are performed with the trainer. After the player is symptom-free through the progressions, this information is faxed to the physician. Final clearance is then given by the physician's office. The certified athletic trainer is the authority on concussions and injuries for many reasons. In the area of concussions, they have received the most recent training possible in recognizing concussion symptoms and performing the progressions, whereas many doctors are often behind the times as they may not have time to review the most recent research. When it comes to injuries and pain, student athletes should see our trainer before seeing the doctor. The trainer can give you reliable information on whether he or she really needs to see a doctor. There's a difference between being injured and simply being sore. Our trainer can definitely help with that. Our goal is to get our kids back on the field as quickly as possible without spending a fortune at the physician's office. Of course, common sense tells us that if there is an obvious injury, medical attention is necessary. A trip to the doctor may keep your son or daughter out of the game longer than necessary on minor aches and pains, as general rest instructions require a return visit in many cases. Again, allow our trainer to take a look. They will not steer you wrong. A quick word on communication and the trainer. Do not keep secrets from the trainer. Your health simply isn't worth it. If you have a headache that won't go away, or you are seeing stars after a hit on the football field, tell someone. We don't want anyone hurt. To be honest, if you have a concussion, you suffer a significant hit before you are healed. Statistics show that 50% of those experience a second significant hit do not survive it. Communicate with your coaches and your trainer. The game simply isn't worth it. Many of you have questions surrounding the NCAA eligibility process. We've included a quick reference guide for you to look through. If your athlete is seriously considering competing at the Division I or II level, they must register with the NCAA Clearinghouse, which at last check cost about $70. You can check out ncaaeligibilitycenter.org to get things started. Once registered, the NCAA will assign you a number, and this is what the school will reference when sending transcripts. Really, during your freshman and sophomore years, you should focus on choosing your courses, basically your core courses. Students will not benefit from taking a light schedule throughout their high school career. Rigor is what is important, so make sure you work just as hard, if not harder, in the classroom as you do in the gym or on the playing field. Your junior year, you will take the ACT or SAT and report your scores to the Eligibility Center. Use code 9999. This is when you will register with the Eligibility Center at the website. An official 6th semester transcript will be sent on behalf of those students who have registered. As for your senior year, course selections are critical. If you want to compete at the collegiate level, you cannot afford to take your senior year off in high school. Check with your counselors and make sure you're taking the proper courses that align with your goals. You will retake the ACT or SAT if necessary and submit their scores. After your senior year is complete, your final transcript will be submitted along with a proof of graduation. Another quick note on collegiate opportunities. Many area community colleges have viable athletic opportunities for high school graduates. Please consider strongly enrolling in the A+ program regardless of your early intentions to play at higher levels. Community colleges do offer scholarships, but tend to lean towards those athletes who have A+ money available to them. Community college programs are otherwise generally very limited on scholarship money they can offer. Just a thought. Parental participation. We can't emphasize enough how essential it is that parents and guardians actively participate in their students' educational programs. The kids love for their parents to be involved regardless of what they may tell you. The Activities Program recognizes 3 organizations that provide support for our activities programs. They are the Activities Athletic Booster Club, the Band Booster Club, and the Notables servicing our choral program. The FFA program could use volunteers as well. You can help these programs by donating time to help them help kids. Step outside the box and make a contribution. It is important to support your kids. At Pleasant Hill, we focus on supporting our programs with a positive and encouraging culture. Nobody within any of our programs are professional athletes or performers. This includes the kids, the coaches, or the officials, all of whom are needed to maintain our programs at Pleasant Hill. Do your part in helping with the success of that positive environment. It is important to remember that coaches, directors, and sponsors have been hired to direct our programs with the approval of the Pleasant Hill Board of Education. It is inappropriate for any parent or patron to assist with on-field or on-court activities unless explicitly approved to do so by school administration and the Board of Education. It is also inappropriate to voice concerns publicly from the stands after a contest or through social media to officials, players, or coaches involved in an event representing Pleasant Hill. Most issues involve a lack of communication of some sort. The following chain of command should be followed. Student to parent is listed first because often the correct information does not get home regarding perceived issues by parents. Students have to accurately communicate with parents. The student-coach relationship is just as important. If performers or athletes become frustrated, they must take steps towards adulthood and have conversations with their coaches or directors. Our coaches will be available to speak with parents at a time outside a date involving a competition. Generally, a request is made via email or phone call for information, and the coach or director will reply. Issues cannot be resolved without appropriate open communication. If you don't ask, you don't know. Maybe there's a good reason you are seeing things the way you are, and students simply are not comfortable with telling you. Please be open. The activities director can become involved only after communication has been made with the coach. If a meeting is necessary with the AD, the student will be invited to attend the meeting. Again, communication resolves most issues, as understanding what is going on at least provides an answer. You may not like what you hear, but you will understand the thought process behind decisions that are made. Social media is an awesome medium by which communication is relied upon these days. How did we survive without it? A couple of points to adhere to if you would please. Please keep comments directed to those involved in our programs positive. It is very easy to speak ill of other people or programs through social media. Resist that temptation should it come. Our students, coaches, administrators, and officials work very hard and deserve support in what they do. They all participate because they love what they do. Pleasant Hill is a great place to be. Social media can show the world just that. Remember that your comments are reflective of yourself, your kids, and our programs. Model what you expect to see from your kids. The role of parents and patrons is clearly defined by the Pleasant Hill Activities Program as enjoying the experience and positively supporting our programs and students. Remember to represent Pleasant Hill R3 schools with professionalism and class. There are many resources available where you can get information you need. If you have questions, feel free to peruse these sites. You can always call the school if you have specific questions. Specifically, we will be using the new Pleasant Hill Activities website for most activities and schedules at the middle school and high school. Keep in mind that coaches and their staffs are ultimately responsible for content on their areas of the site. The site is a constant work in progress with the goal of being a reliable source for our patrons. We are hopeful to make it as user-friendly as possible. Please complete the meeting requirement form that is on the back of the activities pamphlet and leave it in the box in the back of the auditorium. There will be a participation log for the students to sign as well at the table. Please remember that it's always a great day to be a rooster or a chick. On behalf of the Pleasant Hill Activities Department, I would like to thank you for your attendance and attention to this meeting. Our students and their opportunities to participate are our priority. We ultimately want to keep your kids safe while increasing their educational experiences. Go Roosters and Chicks!